This video is going to be about basically building a SKILL.md for your generation models in Claude. I'm using both Claude and Gemini these days. I decided to get both on a sort of pro or basic plan. So before I updated my prompts, my MD file, I got this incredibly elaborate prompt because what I want to be able to do is make a couple of corrections in seed dance. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate, hopefully, what the new SKILL.md is doing, explain what I did to modify my skills in Claude. And now I'm basically just using Claude as my prompting agent, my project manager, essentially. I still use Gemini for all of my research. I do a lot of story stuff in that. But what I'm going to do is vibe it. So here, hey Claude, so I've got a new SKILL.md that I'm using, which I've updated for the OpenArt AI ecosystem. I've got a prompt here for you in our very last communication and chat. I would like you to update the shot to the latest schema. What I would like to do also is that the shot is feeling very CGI and it's feeling very AI. It's very crisp. It doesn't feel cinematic in a camera, or it doesn't emulate that sort of 35mm camera feel that I kind of want. Can you, I guess, make it feel a little bit more real, less CG, but keep essentially the essence of the prompt that we have, because I had specific notes on that one as well. But because the prompt MD that I've now updated in the full architecture that you should now possess, let's redo the prompt so I can have a look at it, and yeah, let's just see what happens. Now to invoke the skill as well, you have to start it off with /, and I've got it here. I've called it OpenArt Prompt Architect. And I don't know, this is the first time I'm doing it since I've done this big update with my prompt architect. Usually what I've been doing is, if I just jump over to, before I accidentally lose it, if I copy, if I go to projects, I used to keep it in the project folder, but I think that what happens is that the way that Claude recommends this, and this is something that you can use in GPT, I believe, maybe not GPT, I think it's Grok allows these. Grok essentially lets you get away with a lot more than Claude does. You can put these into Gemini, but I think that the .md files essentially are interpreted a little bit differently by each LM. And interestingly enough, one of the improvements that I made, which hopefully you'll see, is that it's doing a bilingual prompt. So it uses both English and Chinese, because Chinese as a language has better emotional kind of prompting, more emotion, I believe, in performative stuff, whereas English tends to be a little bit more technical. So I use the English for the technical stuff and the Chinese for the emotional performative stuff. Now, what else is really interesting is that Claude admitted that it's not the best Chinese speaker or interpreter, for that matter, and it did recommend that I use a different language model for that. Now, GPT might be better in this case. Grok might be pretty good. It suggested that what I should look into is actually use a Chinese model to actually take my instructions there. So that might be a direction that I might start to go to investigate that. But I'll see if this level of prompting works for me. So I'm going to go back to my thing here, and I'm going to hit the button. Okay, so before I rewrite it, I need to flag something so you don't run this on a wrong assumption. The skill hasn't loaded on my side. I don't have the updated SKILL.md in context this session. No new schema, no updated model, routing. That's interesting. Let me see what happens if I just start a new chat and invoke the skill here. So I'm going to try doing this in just a singular chat, because my suspicion is that the chat that I'm using, it lives within a project, and I believe that maybe there's a conflict between the project knowledge and an individual chat that just invokes a skill. So let's see. Since I'm sort of listening to an audio book at the moment about Dungeon Crawler Carl, I don't know if anyone else out there is a fan. It's quite a fun series. Let's try. So we'll go for Princess Nut, which is the cat. I'd like to test a SKILL.md that I'm using to create a generative AI character sheet. And I would like to base it, just as a test for internal purposes only, on a character from the book series Dungeon. I'd like a character sheet of Nuts from the latest book, let's say, if you have that information available, or whichever version of Princess Nut that you might have. Don't reference any fan art. I want the accurate literature version of Princess Nut. I'm most likely going to be using Seed Dance 2.0. So let's just see what it is that we need to create that. And I'm invoking a skill for my OpenArt AI skill that I've given you. So let's clean up some of the grammatical and spelling mistakes. Seed dance or sea dance. Now, sea dance, interestingly enough, I think I finally cracked a bit of a connection, because I read the skill files. They were very boring and very long and very mechanical, but a seed essentially is something that has been used in generative games way back when we used to play SimCity. But anything that you would have to generate randomly, you'd have a bar or a slider that has a seed, and that was meant to be a random value that would introduce a certain level of randomness. And interestingly enough, I noticed that Seed Dance is the only video model that has a setting for that you can manipulate. So it's always set to 1, which means random, but I believe that if you set it to 0, then the initial kind of, I don't know what you call it, it's like a mesh or like a fuzz. So that initial kind of bird shit will determine the randomosity of your generation, and the closer you bring it in, then the closer the result of that is going to be. So there might be some interesting manipulations that we can do in playing with the seed setting of your skills. You can probably tell your prompt architect here, hey, let's try to keep this as close to as possible to the original performance, and that might result in a smaller deviation from the seed number. I don't know if it works in integers or absolutes or whatever. So let's have a look. So I'd like to say SKILL.md, blah, 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 or not. All right, well, let's just see what happens. Oh, and I need to invoke the skill. So let's see if that works here now in this chat. So we'll do that, and let's see what happens. Okay, so that seems to be working. So it does appear that if you're working in a project where you want the project memory in the context of let's say a script or whatever, you're going to have to load the skill into a project knowledge folder. So I have seen a lot of the power users just doing pure chats. So invoking the skill in just a long line of prompts. And I guess if your prompts or conversations get a little bit too heavy, then that's when you start to get hallucinations and lose context. Obviously, improving your AI memory settings will use more tokens, so you just got to figure that out, unfortunately. Okay, very interesting. So it's given me my result, and read the skill and its references, routing, etc. Character sheet is an image job. cdance2 must never receive the finished sheet. Interesting. Canon lock worth flagging. She's a tortoiseshell Persian. So it's done its research. Gone to Wikipedia and Crawler's cookbook, which I assume is Dinnerman's fan page. The sheet prompt for Donut version 1. I do want to kind of see her. I'm hoping that this isn't something that's going to get me pulled up for IP, but let's call it fan art. So yep, it's definitely given me a description of her. Append one of these per panel, changing nothing else. So this is panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4. What's that about? Oh, okay, so it's given me a patch map because tortoise shell patching is random by nature, so the model will re-roll every single generation. The patch map below is a house decision, not canon, but it also has to be fixed in words or nothing downstream will hold. Okay, so it's given me my prompt. It's done a lot. It's sort of described Donut. It's given me something to append for each panel. I'm not going to do this manually. I'm going to get the AI to do it for me, so I'm going to have a chat to it again. Okay, cool. I understand that this is IP protected source, that test frames only. I would like you to run the pipeline test on creating the character panels, please. Can you please just connect to the OpenArt AI MCP and render the images for me? Okay, it's asking me for permission. I'm going to allow it once. Interestingly enough, what it's doing is it's running it in Kling 3 Omni text to image. I'm not sure if I want it to do that. Image generation failed. Kling series results. Does it say why? Image generation failed. Not sure if I have enough credits on my account. Can you try to run this through Nano Banana Pro, please? Or GPT-2, whichever you think is better for the task. I've got 180 credits, so I should have enough. Not credits. The account has 180. Wonderplan, fine. Kling series results. Type is not allowed when no input. When no image input. Doesn't take an input without an image reference, so that's why Nano Banana Pro 2 or some other model is going to help. Okay, I got another failed result. Can you investigate, please? Okay, it's logging a little bit of a feedback report, potentially to allow me to update my SKILL.md file. And this is something that's an ongoing process for when you're creating a SKILL.md file, is that it's going to have some problems, give you a couple of errors, or let's say misinterpretation of what works, what doesn't work, and you kind of evolve this process and evolve your skill file as you go along. For example, I noticed that here aspect ratio is 1:1, which is the square format, not the long format. But look, there's Princess Donut from the fan art. I might have to blur her a little bit just so it's not too obvious, but that's pretty cool. We've got a full body frontal, we've got a 3/4 rear angle. She looks hilarious. Okay, what I'm going to do now is, because this is kind of more of a process-driven chat about, or process-driven video about how I'm doing things at the moment. Before I go to investigate and fix potentially this skill sheet, I don't know if that's actually going to be correct. It might be. It might be perfect. Who knows? I'm going to go down to a chat that I've been having here about improving Claude model for AI video skills. And actually just over here, back to this chat, what I'm going to say is, Hey, I've got another chat going where I'm building on and developing my SKILL.md file, changing any issues that you find. Can you give me a prompt that or a report that encapsulates all the problems that we've found so far with generating this character sheet of Prince Donut as an example, so that I can update any further issues I have down the line. Additionally, what I think I need to do is investigate how the current dev notes and meta require my character sheets. This is an aspect ratio 1:1. I don't know if it needs to be a 21:9 or a 16:9 character sheet. So let's include that in the analysis for the other chat to handle. So skill files are kind of human written or human language, human verbosity instructions that are interpreted by a language model, not through computer code and logic. They're just a set of instructions that are communicated in a human-like way that a human being could potentially give an MD skill file to a computer by writing one out by hand, but wow. Okay, I don't know if you heard that weird alarm sound. I didn't know where the hell it was coming from. Apparently it's coming from my phone. I got a severe alert issued by the UK government. There you go, the government has sent me quite an alarming message here. Where was I? So a SKILL.md is a kind of a human written instruction that gets put into a text file with a suffix .md. That gets put into a folder somewhere on your computer. Now your SKILL.md file is going to have about 500 characters, and or at least each portion of your SKILL.md file has got a maximum of about 500 characters for efficiency, but there are subfolders and sub-MD kind of structures that can spawn off that for each and every sort of topic, let's say you want to sort of include in that. I'm making one skill to rule them all because I'm in one ecosystem at the moment. If I move to another ecosystem like Higgsfield or a different MCP supported kind of, or it doesn't have to be MCP supported, but if I move to a different ecosystem with different models, then I might sort of say, hey, can you take this SKILL.md file and tailor it to all of the models that are on this other ecosystem? And I'll show you in just a short moment what that'll look like as well. Okay, and as you can see, what it's done here is it's actually created an MD file for the other chat to actually interpret and take all this into account so that I can update my SKILL.md file. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this as an MD file to my desktop, and I'm going to upload. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to upload this MD file into my main SKILL.md building chat where I've been developing and working on all this sort of stuff. And I'm going to say, hey, so I ran a live pipeline test on creating a character sheet of, doesn't matter. Can you have a look at the SKILL.md file that's been created in another chat where I was making the character sheet as a report on a live pipeline test for creating a character sheet, please? Plus I asked it to include a question about aspect ratio as well. Okay, so it's now pinging the OpenArt MCP. So the reason why I think it's useful to have an ecosystem with something called an MCP, sorry, is that your Claude or your LM can actually then go to the website itself and ping the very tools that are being called on. So there's no question about, oh, these guys don't actually do 4K, they only do 720p or 1080p. Your connector is actually going to have the absolute facts in front of it when it's updating your skill sheets as well. So that's another important little thing to be mindful of. It's a useful tool to support your skills, because you might be getting it to invoke instructions that are not actually even, that they're going, they're falling on deaf ears, or they might not actually be connecting to anything. So it's read the report. It said it's a strong report because obviously it wrote it itself. Verified independently, so that's through this connection of the MCP, the costs of how much each model costs. I don't actually need that information. I'm pretty happy just to save my rates and tokens and move on from knowing that level of detail. So I might update that at some point later. It's made an assessment on, again, praising itself. The report's good. Aspect ratio question. So 2800 pixels cap is Kling only. You already use the layout it recommends, which is 233 in a 1.4 row. So question 1 on aspect ratio across the cast or per species for Yossele, the question is moot. Right, okay, so when I called on the SKILL.md file on creating a character sheet in just another chat as a test, a pipeline test, why did it create a 1:1 aspect ratio character sheet? Okay, so because the skill never says, that's the honest answer, and the report itself half admits it. Says 1:1 was the working assumption, not the house standard. Okay, so it looks like we've got a couple of holes that we need to patch up. First of all, making sure that our character sheets adhere to a standard, the best standard, which at the moment I believe is aspect ratio 21:9, unless developer documentation and sources specify otherwise. I think we should keep that as the standard. Use the report to patch up any other issues that we have in creating our prompts. Can you also determine why the Kling prompt was failing? Should we update the Kling model architecture on skill knowledge base or developer notes? Oh, okay. Usage limit reached. Okay, it's the following day. My credits have refreshed. So the reason that my token usage just went off the charts is because I'm doing a couple of things. I'm using an MCP, which is the model connector that goes to the web page. There's a lot of data there that it has to connect to and read, etc. Every time it does that, it uses a ton of tokens. That's why many of the sort of pro-level prompters will not necessarily connect to the MCP. They'll have the connector there, but they'll only use it the way that I'm kind of using it here as a reference, really. I use it sometimes just to be lazy, just to say, hey, can I get a thumbnail for my YouTube channel? Can I get it to update a quick little image here and there? Can I do it something small, especially if I know that I'm quite healthy on the tokens? But a lot of the time the pro users will just get it to give them a prompt only that they copy paste into the ecosystem. And I kind of prefer that, because if I jump over to the ecosystem, so in this case OpenArt AI, it makes sense to me a little bit to keep all my work or have visibility of the work on this page, rather than getting all my media streamed to me in a chat conversation. It kind of feels a little bit... Okay, so it's kind of diagnosed a bunch of the stuff here. I should probably be using the Opus Extra for this kind of level of skill sheet building. It'll certainly have more context. It'll spend more time thinking about what it's doing, and it'll do things a little bit more methodically. So Okay, so what it's done, it said why Kling failed, and it's given me a couple of fixes here. 2 more Kling traps we found while I was in there. Result type, series amount, image count, resolution, aspect ratio, auto enhance prompts, omitting any fails, validation, and AR defaults to 4 by 3, not 1 by 1, which is a third different default used across all models. So the 21.9 standard is in, great. Also patched. A new one I hit myself. Unknown parameters are silently dropped or rejected. That's interesting. I quoted Nano Banana Pro resolution tier, Kling and GPT image use 2. GPT image 2 use that name, but Nano Banana wants resolution. And got a clean looking 1K price back. So, okay, great. So it's done a little bit of back testing for me. So let's now just jump ahead to a point where I'm going to download and open the package. We're going to move this into my documents. I keep these things in Claude. I'm going to pop it in here and replace the folder that I've got there. And a skill, the way that you pop your skill into the language model that you want to use once it's in there, and you can see that's the main skill. I'm going to open that up here for you in TextEdit. It gives you, a description of what the skill does. As you can see, you can, as a human being, read it all. It's not logic code, no Python language, nothing that is not human readable. You can kind of digest and dissect it all. You can search it. This is the thing that I was mentioning before, seeds, variants, and progressive constraints. So only seed dance exposes a seed, -1 equals random. Never promise seed lock iteration elsewhere. It's what I was talking about, that sort of initial first frame is your seed, and it may look like rubbish, it may look like nothing, it may just look like a black frame, but from that it starts to spawn the image, and that's the randomizer, and that could determine the position of an object, what it's doing, that kind of stuff, and then from there on it kind of feeds the next frame, etc., and that's how you get your randomization. And I don't know if it works in whole numbers or if you can go more granular, like how many decimal points can you add to it? Like, can you still maintain some of the integrity of the motion that you liked? So if you set it to 0, does that mean that there is absolutely no difference? And maybe that's great if you want to be able to make one change but keeping everything about that shot the same, but you just want to change one thing there. I don't know. So that's a thing to look into. I didn't read everything, but I did kind of just sort of glaze over some stuff and sort of had a look and thought, oh, that's interesting that this is how things work. So SKILL.md files, or just the MD files in general, they tend to have roughly a 500 character limit. That's the recommendation. Oh, undo. In references, I've got Kling models, reference sheets, that kind of stuff. So that's for when I create my character reference sheets. There's a whole bunch of research and stuff that I've done for essentially making sure that my character sheets are ideal for my projects, and it's given me advice on when I use CDunce 2.5 that I should use a different kind of prompting method with my references. So I need to actually take out my cropped panels because it will adhere to those cropped panels better for some reason. But it did say that using the sheets that I have as I have them at the moment aren't breaking anything either, but I think it's more about close-up detail and that kind of stuff, especially if you've got non-human characters like I have. So let's go back to the skill sheet. So I had my downloaded file. Let me see if I compressed it into a zip file. I did not. So let's go to compress. It's done that. It's a zip file now. we're going back to, we go to skills. And I'm going to, because I'm updating my skill file, I don't have to delete it. You may want to, but I just click on it. And in the three-dot pull-down menu here, you can say replace. And then I find that zip file that I created, open it, and there it is. It's updated, replaced OpenArt prompt architecture, and I click on it, and it should be updated. I should probably tell it to version each skill file, so I know that I'm not uploading the same one. So what's interesting is that I know that what I'm doing is I'm making one, call it master skill, with a whole bunch of subroutines. And what some people will do, they will create specific skills for specific tasks. So they'll have a separate skill for images, they'll have a separate skill for video generations, they might have an individual skill for every single model there is. Once a month, I think, or any time that I get an update from a website saying, hey, we've updated this or that, I'll probably just tell my chat here to ping the server and update anything that may have changed, just to make sure that I'm always running on the latest instructions, the latest models, that I have the latest architectures. I think I don't have every single model logged in here, because I probably won't use all of them, but I'm going to need Kling for an anime thing that I'm doing. Seed Dance obviously is the meta right now. VO is still okay for performances. What I might do actually is, I think Suno has recently updated their stuff, and it's really a question of whether I want to be able to update my skill sheet in this global master, because once I have this, call it this global sheet, done for one ecosystem, I might be able to just say, hey, you've got a skill sheet here that is built for OpenArt AI. I'm moving to a new ecosystem, or I need another skill sheet for another ecosystem. Can you adapt all of the information here, connect to its MCP or connectors or whatever information there is, transfer what is already useful, just make sure that it's still compatible with the connectors and the references in the new ecosystem, in case that there are some differences in resolution, like I think Higgsfield lets you render at 4K. I'm not sure OpenArt supports that just yet. Yeah, each ecosystem might have its own rules and regulations, and some will have benefits over the other. So otherwise, at least with mine, I have the full sheet, and it can strip that down and change little bits that it needs to. It will use more tokens. Alternatively, if you have your modular skills set up in that way, all spread out, each does its own job, then you're going to have to do that maybe less regularly than what I'm doing, use less tokens. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's have a look. So do I want to do Suno skill sheet, or demonstrate another kind of SKILL.md? So what I noticed is that you can, so a SKILL.md file, or a skill, just for any language model, it doesn't necessarily have to be for like prompting architecture. This is a thing that will work for different use cases. If you have a repetitive task that you're doing over and over again, and you just want to, let's say, try and automate that process or make it simpler, then you can use a skill file for that. I saw one guy on a Discord community in Higgsfield. I still listen to their Discord community because I probably will end up getting FOMO, massive FOMO, now that they've released their Soul Cinema. But if I get paid at some point for a job, then I'm going to play with that, because it looks like it does some cool stuff for performance, and we'll see. Plus, I like the ecosystem, and I like those guys. I think they're a very supportive and alive community. I think that they're doing a really good job at sort of just being really cool people. So what I noticed, one of the guys there, follow his socials. He's called the Mad Prompter, really clever guy. He does advertising. He gives skills away. He's got a lot of knowledge. Really cool dude. He had an interesting one, which I don't know if I want to explore that. But essentially, what he can do is he can rip a movie scene. And he can essentially just get the AI to analyze and break down a movie scene into its individual storyboards pieces, give you a 3x3 or a 9-panel grid. And what it'll do is it'll essentially just analyze the camera moves in that scene and give you prompts to recreate that kind of scene. And that's something that he can apply to commercials or can apply to other things. And I might tinker with building something like that. Let's say I wanted to recreate the camera moves because I like the cutting pattern and the action sequence and the visual storytelling of a particular movie. Or, like, what was it? It was, I think it was a TV show called Preacher. It had, I can't remember which season it was, 2 or 3. It had this kind of looping sequence of a guy walking in a desert. He's like a cowboy. I think his wife passes away while he's gone out to look for medicine. He comes back, finds that she's passed away. So he's kind of like in hell, or in a version of purgatory where he's just being constantly tortured by the death of his wife and how he had to leave her and he couldn't be with her and he couldn't save her and all that kind of stuff. But the sequence was so well done. I remember sitting there just thinking, I was so impressed by the way that story was being told, the way it looped. It accelerated over time. It's a really cool scene. So you could, for instance, use that as a kind of inspiration, put it into a skill, say, what were the successful kinds of shots and compositions that we used in that scene, and can I essentially make my own version of something like that in a project of my own? But his automation was really clever. What else? So I've done that. I can probably. I was going to look at potentially trying to demonstrate a skill built from scratch. So I might as well show you. Let's try the Suno method, and I don't know if Suno has like an MCP. I don't know if they have good developer notes and stuff. In fact, I may have already sort of done this, but let's say I'm going to approach this from the very beginning. I had no idea what I was doing. And so after fiddling and faffing around and having already built some skill sheets, I asked Claude and I said, what am I doing wrong? I asked Claude and I said, Claude, help me out here. I'm trying to build a skill sheet. I've never done it before. Am I doing the right thing? And it said, basically, whatever you've done already is the right thing. It looks fine. And it's because initially when I built my thing, I think Claude, as an apology, gave me a little bit of credit because I was using all my tokens and I complained. And it said, here's like a little bit of cash credit for using Fable. So I jumped on Fable and I said, hey, Fable, since I've got you, help me build a skill sheet for this platform. And it said, yeah, sure, no worries. Ripped through the websites, did all the skill building. I still probably made mistakes by telling it to do it the way that I asked it to. And since then, I've been iterating upon it as I've found that things are not working the way that I want them to, or that it was the LM was only as good as the instruction that I gave it. The instruction that I gave it was done very well, but I guess I fell into a little bit of a trap. I asked the genie for the wish, but the genie's interpretation was so literal that it gave me exactly what I wanted, and it wasn't what I needed. So, that's the analogy there. So, so essentially, I'm just having a conversation with the language model. I'm just saying, hey, this is what I need now. I need to update the skill sheet, or I need a new skill sheet for XYZ. And again, if you want to get a little bit more, not mechanical, but if you want to get a little bit more sophisticated with it, then you can jump over to Mad Prompter, like I said, and see what he's done on his page, on his channels. But I'm not going to go too sophisticated. I just need it to do what I need it to do for now. I do have another video that I'll do soon, because I did build an app, but it's for people with language disability. So I'll do a little piece on that. So for now, let's update the Suno skills. And of course, I'm gonna talk to it, because now I've gotten better at sort of not stammering and stuttering my words. I'm getting better at actually just vibing with the AI here. So let's see now. It saves me having to type it and then reread it to you as well, or type it slowly while I'm kind of mouthing the words. So let's see. Okay, great. I've uploaded the skills to your knowledge base now, and I can invoke the skills whenever I please. I noticed that Suno has recently made updates to its architecture, possibly its models, certainly its developer notes. I don't know whether they have a specific MD or an MCP or a clever way of us just extracting the information that we need very efficiently. But if you could investigate and look at what the updates are, where our skill sheet is lacking. I guess this skill sheet is becoming more than just an OpenArt specific thing, because I also use 11 Labs. I know that 11 Labs is supported somewhat in OpenArt AI, but I still already use 11 Labs separately. Let's start with Suno to see what improvements it's going to make for us prompting for music, and see what enhancements it's made and what developer notes have been updated, how it can benefit us. In the meantime, once you do your audit, update my skills and let me know what you come up with. Cool. So, I'm a little bit verbose. I probably gave it a little bit too much context. I can't help myself, so let's just say that. Suno API docs sites are third-party resellers, not Suno. Let me check the official source. Cool. First, this is a separate skill, not an addition. I made it Film Audio Architect rather than extending the OpenArt one. Okay, fine. So it's made that call for me. That makes sense. For some reason, we kept Higgsfield separate. The OpenArt skill is scoped to a tool. Bolting Suno onto it breaks its description. Fair call. The Headline Studio 2.0 shipped 2 days ago. Okay. A total overhaul of Suno's browser-based generative DAW MIDI import, record, edit timeline. A chat bar that generates instruments, vocal plugins, synth presets, audio effects include sidechain compression and convolution reverb, a wavelength synth, music type, aggregator, automation, Premiere only. Okay, fine. For you specifically, convolution reverb plus automation means a cue can be placed in the space of the scene inside Suno, and MIDI export means a generated motif can be revoiced later. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I don't understand all of it, but the thing you're probably not using, Sounds Mode, which was shipped in January, a one-shot sample and the loop from scratch. Suno's own examples include glass smash, air horn, footsteps for your Foley project, loops, let you set key and BPM first, okay? That's a Foley generator. Okay, fine. Not sure I really care about that. Stems rebuilt, 3 modes. Okay, fine. I don't really care about stems that much. The style field, 1000 characters on 4.5, version 5, 5.5, 200 on older models. Fine, so we get more prompting structure there. Brackets belong in the lyrics field for structural tags, BPM and key and go and key go in style fields. I have to admit to not really knowing that much about music, but that's why I have a skill builder that's going to help me. Suno has no official public API, no self-serve developer access, no published schema. Fine. One thing I need from you, which Suno plan are you on? Okay, let's find out. My current Suno plan is Pro. Yeah, so I've got an anime project in the works as well. That's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little bit spooky. I based it on a D&D one-shot adventure that I designed for a couple of friends that I was hoping to run them through, but it never kind of worked out for us to play it. So I just thought, I'll just turn this into an adventure. If you haven't played D&D, it's really cool. It's a lot of actors have come out of the woodwork and said that they used to play it, and I think it's a fantastic thing that gives you the skills to build worlds and think about stories, particularly in a game-like way, modularly, where an action that you perform on one side of the game can affect something on the other side of the game. There's an overall arc, but you as a participant, it's like storytelling for computer games. But I think Mass Effect was one of the best stories, and I loved it at the time because the decisions that you made on disc 1 or the first game carried over as decisions that impacted the story in part 2 and then subsequently part 3 as well. It was really cool. Pro changes the advice materially fine. Suno Studio has been Premiere only since it launched in September. Sounds is available on Pro, fine. The finding that matters most. Your video audio rule inverts here. Okay. Your OpenArt skill says never to name sound effects in a video prompt because you get a caricature. Suno guidance for sounds is the exact opposite. Fine. It's keeping it separate, so that's fine. Honestly, no Chrome access. Fine. Heavy leather boot. So it gives me an example of a Foley test that I can do. Let's copy that. Let's test this. What am I getting wrong here? Sounds. Oh, create short samples. Here we go. Whoops. Because it's footsteps, they're going to loop it. Did we have... Okay, so no BPM, one shot. Oh, it did say one shot. I wouldn't mind it looping if it's a footstep, but whatever. And did it say keys? Didn't say anything about keys. Let's say create. Okay. Heavy leather boots on cobblestones. That's not bad. It's not bad. Interesting to see that Suno is now moving into the sound effects game the way that 11 Labs has as well. So curious little find there. So, okay, that's great. So we've got a skill sheet for Suno. We're going to make a special folder for it. It's given me the zip file automatically for it as well. So let's pop that into Documents. We're going to pop it into Claude. Throw it in here. And that's the one that I'm going to upload to the skills. So, skills, add. So if you created a new skill, then you add, create with Claude, or upload a skill. Drag and drop or navigate to Film Audio Architect. Great. Notice that I use the zip file. And now, by using / it should appear Film Audio Architect or My OpenArt or Skill Creator. So if you could probably just use Skill Creator in Claude, create your own prompts. So guys, this is kind of what I was talking about. I think this is the secret sauce. Now, I did a bit of a search. People talk about skill creation. People sort of mention it. A lot of the time, your pro-level streamers are going to kind of scroll past text documents that look, ridiculously complicated, and they may feel quite intimidating. Don't feel intimidated. There is something that I sort of refer to as, I earned and learned, right? So you can learn something and you own that forever, and that's earned. So you earned it. But if you're given something, then yeah, fair enough. You save yourself a bit of time. It's a cheat code. Everyone else is doing it. But you're like, if I built something, then I know that I can build it again if I lose it. Or if something changes, then I know what to do when it changes. But if I get given stuff, then it's I'm reliant on needing it given to me again, and I become reliant on those people. So my advice would be, just learn this stuff. I'm sure a lot of you already do, but the secret sauce is in skill building. The secret sauce is in figuring out the architectures, the systems, the repetitive tasks. Think about, how can this be applied now? How can the functionalities of these LMs and the sophistication of these tools now be applied to the things that I'm doing? So long as you know the right question to ask, so long as you know what it is that you need, think about the things that you need, then you can probably build a skill for it. You can probably come up with a solution. And if it's not perfect, that's fine, because you'll find out that it's not perfect. You'll query the language model and you'll say, why isn't this perfect? Why isn't this working the way that I wanted it to? And the thing will bloody tell you why. It will investigate and it will figure it out. But it's knowing what you need to ask. It's knowing the right questions. It's knowing the right thing. It's having the right need. And even if you have a really cool idea, like, can I make something more efficient? Have a conversation with it. Skills are the secret sauce. Skills are the way to move forward. Okay, so what I wanted to do was I basically had a lovely prompt here, right, for a shot where I had the golem coming out of I might as well show it to you. So I've got this shot here, and the golem comes out. He comes out and grabs this guy. It looks very CG. This thing doesn't look very practical or real. Over here, we should be seeing these two fellows here in the shot, and I don't have that. Basically, it's a cool shot, but it looks fake. It looks very CGI. It looks very AI. It looks too pristine. As you can see with what I'm doing here, I'm forcing a degradation of quality in my pictures. I'm grading it in a particular color, which at the moment I'm not really sure whether I'm happy with. It's kind of a little bit green, let's say. This shot here was lit too brightly, so I'm going to have to revisit that one as well. But this is the big shot. This is not the first reveal of the golem, but this is where you really take it in. You see, wow, this thing is actually 10 foot tall. I didn't actually think that it was going to be that big. Anyway, long story short, it just feels very AI, very CG, very meh. I'm not very interested, and there's a massive continuity issue there with these guys here not being in the shot. I've already given it my prompt, and of course, because at the beginning of the video we figured out that your skills, unless they may be preloaded, but for some reason the skills don't work in projects, so it eats less of your tokens and usage if they're not in a project. If they're in a project as the knowledge, it'll read those documents every single time it references. So I've dug myself a bit of a hole there. Yeah, so I think I've basically said to it what needs happening. Let's see what it does. And this is going to be a surprise because I gave Claude a lot of instructions about using different languages. I want it to be, I wanted to use 2 languages, English and Chinese, because Chinese is better at some things, English is better at other things. And let's see if it actually takes in the instructions, figures it all out. Okay, so let's see. Image, end tags, fine, that's great. Unused materials, interesting. So, okay. Want stages rather than timestamps. Yeah, so that's another change that's happened in Seed Dance 2 is where we used to say at this time this happens, at this time this happens. That was never something that I was ever fond of. It just says this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and it will figure it out on its own based on how much time there is. I'll get into some of the meta mechanics of that as well. So it says stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. Lighting and color, blah blah blah. It's not done anything in the Chinese language. That's interesting. It's kept it in English. So once my credits refresh, which I think is going to be in another 4 days, I've got to wait 4 more days, then I'll be able to test how that's all looking. So it's recommending 1080p, 16:9, 12 seconds for that shot. I disagree with that. I think it's got to be the full 15. That's another little change that I'm making to the way that I'm working, is that I would prefer to run a traditional camera. I'd prefer to have a long take. I think in my circumstance and the reading that I've done about how the CDANS 2.5 model works, it sort of at the moment seems that it works better at about 20 seconds. Going past that, you start to get things falling over, and I think it's this model context thing that happens. It supports 30 seconds. You can get 30 seconds out of it, but I think that they advise just keep it at about 20 maximum. And they don't support the full number of references either. They say 50, but I think that they say keep it to 30 instead. The 1080p thing I'm not sure about. I know a lot of the better creators, the pro users, tend to get really nice quality out of 1080p. There are ways that they prompt stuff. That's what I was going to do. What I need to do is make a SKILL.md file that's part of the OpenArt prompting architecture that is camera literate. So teach it about ARRI cameras, RED cameras, old film cameras, Bolex and all that kind of stuff. Get it to basically build a lexicon of lenses, terminology like halation and all that kind of stuff, lens flares, what kind of lenses on what kind of cameras create what kind of optical effects, because all of those things can be interpreted by these generation models. So we'll get around to that. We'll get to that. Hey, I thought we had multi-language prompts going at the moment, so what happened with that? I'll ask it the question. I'll probably use all of my credits on this question now. Sleuthing. We never adopted it. The skill file documents the reasoning explicitly under prompt language. It says not adopted default to English throughout. The rationale per the file. Seed Dance handles Chinese natively, and the documented split is English for camera, technical style directives, with Chinese optionally for atmosphere, but the only hard verifiable benefit is Mandarin lip sync accuracy, which is irrelevant here since nobody in the film speaks Mandarin. The atmosphere claim is described as soft, single-sourced, and landing in the register hardest to audit without native fluency, roughly double the tokens for an unverifiable variable. Okay, so basically English is good enough, and it has been, it's been fine. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Oh, by the way, guys, 103, I think, 102 subscribers. Thank you so much, love it. Very much appreciate the support. So grateful that you guys are finding some benefit to my mad ramblings. I'm going to do what I can to keep giving you guys stuff that's useful. For those of you guys who stick around, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. I want to give a particular shout out to at the Pivotal Studios, or the Pivotal Studio, and Riker Stone. There's a few other mentions which God, there's an alarm going off outside. I hope you can hear me, but You guys have been there from the very beginning. You've always been supportive. Your messages and comments, really help me stay motivated and keep me doing this sort of stuff. Thank God. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Until the next one, which shouldn't be too long. Hope you guys had something good out of this. All right, cheers, thanks, bye.